So, what do we need for effective advocacy? Firstly, the cause has to be right or just. Remember, advocacy is about justice. And do bear in mind that your opponents may also feel that their cause is right, and they are right to oppose you. But there must be this sense of justice. This isn't right. Something has to be done for this group, for these people, or for this issue, or for this cause. Advocacy may be about education, but it also requires power. The power and influence of you, the advocate. Now, you may feel that you are powerless, but that is not necessarily true. And we will look at the power inventory later in the course. But there has to be power and influence of the advocates for advocacy to be possible. Because advocacy is based on education, information, and changing awareness in order to bring about a change in society or a change in behavior, that means that our research has to be in-depth and it has to be solid. We have to have our facts right. There is no excuse in advocacy for having misleading or false information. So it requires solid and in-depth research, understanding the background to the issue as well as local information about the issue itself. Advocacy can only happen in the right climate of opinion. The climate of opinion means, is the world ready for this? Is the community ready for this change? Some changes can take decades, some changes can take months, if the time is right. So is the time right for this particular issue? And do you have the skills, or can you learn the skills in advocacy methods? Methods of dealing with the media, researching information, communicating information to community groups, lobbying, social media, organizing protests, whatever approaches that you may use. Do you have those skills, or do you have the allies that can help you to implement those methods? Because advocacy may require a range of tactics along this spectrum, from information right through to civil disobedience and protest. We also need to be ready to meet opposition. We need to know what their tactics are likely to be, how they are going to undermine us, how they are going to resist us, and be ready to respond to those things. When we go public with an advocacy campaign, we're going to draw attention to ourselves. Holding an opinion is one thing, but coming out into the world and publicly making those opinions and that information known is going to draw attention. Not everyone is going to be on our side. Some people will oppose us, maybe even violently. A lot of people will be disinterested or just not care, or just wish we'd go away. And if things do go wrong, that can lead to serious problems. At the very least, you're going to damage any future campaigns or efforts around this issue. You could face legal consequences. You could end up in court for trespass or defamation, or there could even be other more severe consequences. We're going to run through 20 advocacy guidelines. Success depends more than just having dedicated people working to a common purpose. It requires knowing how to be effective in promoting your cause. So here are some guidelines that can be adapted to most situations. And let's remember again, some of you are working in situations where advocacy may be quite dangerous. And some of you may be working in places where advocacy is protected and given space in much safer environments. So bear in mind, these guidelines will not apply to everybody, and they may need to be adapted to your specific situation. So some will apply, some won't apply, and some may need some adaptation, and we'll look at that a little bit later in the exercise. The first one is focus on the positive or accentuate the positive. That means keeping your eyes open for positive events related to your goals. They could be changes in programs or policies that are happening in or around your community, whether or not they are a result of your group's activities. So keep looking for those positive things. If you notice something happening, even if it's something small, recognize that publicly, make it public, bring it to public awareness. As an advocate, you need to play up the positive aspects of the issue and the situation. Emphasize the good things that will happen if people support you, and not how evil your opposition is, even if that may be something you have to do at some point. Focus on the positive, not attacking your opponent. Focus on solutions. Talk about how good things can be, not about how terrible things are right now. The more you focus on the positive, the more likely people will want to join or support your effort. Emphasize your organization's values and accomplishments, especially those related to the community. Talk about the positive values and vision of your organization's work. This will make it more difficult for opponents to argue against your cause. When you focus public attention on values and principles that benefit everyone, principles like justice and security, that prevents small, time-consuming arguments that will sideline our efforts. Core human values to include with your group's efforts can be justice, fairness, freedom, liberty, equal opportunity, dignity or respect, general welfare, health, security, and survival. All of these values are core human values that everyone can relate to. We said that advocacy is a long road, and certainly to achieve our goal requires time and perseverance. But along the way, we should plan for small victories. People like to see results, even if they're really minor ones. A lot of time can go by without any kind of major breakthrough happening. So make sure that in your action plan, you have some short-term or intermediate objectives that can build confidence and reputation of your group. So celebrate those small victories along the way, and where you can, you plan for those. Present the issues in the way that you want others to see them. Don't let others define the issue, especially your opponents. If they talk about antisocial youths, you frame the issue as unemployment for young men. Frame the issue in the community's terms, in the community's own voice. As advocates, you need to have your own public identity. Even if you're part of a larger national group or a larger movement, have your own public image locally. For example, your local group might be seen as the one that promotes healthy lifestyles, or protects child's rights, or creates safe workplaces, or supports families in need. If your link to a national organization is too close, any positive or negative image about that group can easily be transferred to you. So maintaining your own individual group's public identity is very important for managing your reputation and your credibility as an unbiased, independent team or organization. Get your facts straight. You need to understand the issue inside out. You need to be able to quote source material, information, point to correct and reliable statistics for your public statements, whether it's in promotion of your cause or in response to misinformation from your opponents. That means you need to carefully document all your claims about the problem and its consequences. You need to be able to collect data which is accurate and relevant from people who have the true and current facts and figures. That information needs to be verified. That means using as many credible sources as possible. Otherwise, we are just reporting hearsay and gossip. Practice using those facts and figures to explain why you're doing what you do, expressing that clearly, showing that you understand your facts. You should be able to call on those facts at any time that you're challenged. Even if you're in the middle of a press interview and somebody throws in a really tough question, have those facts ready and know that those facts are correct, because they will be checked. And if there's a problem with our facts, our whole credibility is going to suffer. That means you also need to have solid documentation in case of counterattacks. So if your opposition says, no, that's not true, school enrollment is fine, you need to have that documentation ready to say, no, it's not. Here are the figures. Your figures are incorrect. It's also important to keep things simple. This is true in every aspect of an advocacy campaign. Explain things in clear and simple language that everyone can understand. And don't get lost in details that take us away from the real issue. Make all the actions that your campaign will take simple and easy to carry out. There's no need to complicate things. Effective solutions are not necessarily complex. The simpler the better. The path that is the simplest is the least likely to cause trouble, and it's the one that people will most easily follow. Even if another approach or another pathway looks more attractive and more effective, you want something people can easily follow. That also comes to things like slogans and messages. We keep those simple too. Keep things simple. Don't make things harder than they have to be. Always look for the simplest possible way of reaching your goals. Working for community health, relief, humanitarian work, development, and justice, it's always an uphill struggle. It can be a long, long battle. And that means we need to bring our passion and we need to bring our persistence. Passion gives our movement energy. It energizes people. It helps to bring the undecided people into our camp, and it helps to keep our organization alive and vibrant and focused. And persistence keeps our issues in the public eye and helps us to follow through and keep going even in the face of opposition. You may be surprised to hear this, but advocates need to be prepared to compromise. Building a healthy understanding and healthy community often calls for compromising with groups whose interests may conflict or may be different to our own. Of course, we need to stay true to our vision, but let's also be open to alternative approaches that may bring us closer to our goals. If we are stubbornly locked into achieving our goal at all expenses, we may never get there. But having that willingness to compromise, perhaps over some aspect of a policy change, can create goodwill and demonstrate a reasonableness that will attract wider support within the community. So try not to be seen as too obstinate or hard-headed and extreme. Extreme is a word people like to put about to criticize others. Think about what you would settle for. It's always possible to reach a compromise, and then the climate has changed. And then there may be another effort to take you further along the path of your goal. Look for opportunities where you can be creative. Be opportunistic, firstly. If something happens and you can connect that to your cause, do so. Let's say a famous person or a celebrity mentions something related to your issue. Tie your issue to that. Put it on your social media feed. So always look for those opportunities. Or it may be that there is a national event that is related to your issue. That's a place for you to be seen and to present your issue in the public eye. And look for ways to be creative, getting your message across in a way that is memorable and interesting. Advocates have successfully gone head-to-head with powerful people, including politicians and business leaders. Facing influential opponents can be daunting, especially in the light of their name, recognition, and resources. However, as an advocate for your community, you have some credibility as well. After all, you're fighting for the community's well-being, whether that's safer streets, decent jobs, cleaner air, or access to healthcare. The public will recognize this. The bottom line is, if you're intimidated into inaction, your opponents will automatically win. Look for the good in others. When an opponent criticizes your organization or criticizes your advocacy effort, begin by assuming that this person doesn't have the same understanding that you do and is speaking from a lack of information. Don't assume that they're out to get you, or they don't care about the issue, or they're looking for a fight. Assume first that it's simply ignorance. See the good in others and educate them in the good about you and your cause. Keep your hand on the plow. I was going to say keep your eyes on the prize, which is a phrase which actually originated from this one. Keep your hand on the plow, from Alice Wine, a segregation activist in the 1950s. It was a song. And what does that mean? It's about, again, perseverance. It's about persistence. It's about keeping that goal in mind, that change that we know one day is going to come. Opponents will try to distract you. They'll try to pull you away from your advocacy activities. They will attack your information. They will attack you personally, whether it's your reputation or threatening your freedom. We don't want to get pulled into responding to personal attacks or what we call mudslinging. They say they criticize us, we criticize them. Stay focused instead on the important issues at hand. For example, instead of responding to the attack, we want to reframe the issue. This is not about religion. This is about a girl's right to education, for example. When we do need to respond to maintain credibility, when we are attacked, our defense should be about the issues and documented with the facts. Keep your issues local and relevant, because that's where our support comes from. All issues actually are local. They have consequences where people live. But when you bring your issues to the local level, you increase your chances for public support. So you may have your general information, but supplement these with statistics that you gather locally and use local examples and role models, such as respected leaders from the community. And present your issues in such a way that community members understand how it affects them. Aim to get broad-based support from the very beginning. Later we look at identifying allies, but they could be community leaders, community groups, religious leaders, local people of influence, government departments, the media. There's a whole range of people who could be allied to us, and we should really get them on board as early as possible, identify who they are and get their support. Aim to work within the experience of your group members. What we mean here is that the actions that your group takes should reflect the experiences, the values and the interests of the group members. So, for example, if your group members have a fear of those in power, they're unlikely to get involved in direct action such as public demonstrations and protests. Monitor the preferences of your group members regularly and always choose actions that members are comfortable with. So basically what we're saying is that the style of your advocacy approach should be one that sits comfortably with the personal situations and the values and the experience of your group members. Just as we want to work within our own experience in alignment with our own values, we also need to work outside the experience of our opponents. Confuse them, take them by surprise. That will weaken them. Most groups don't plan for how to deal with, for example, public opposition to their actions or policies. So public protest can take them by surprise. These unexpected actions can also be simple things such as submitting a proposal for change that they have to deal with, or surprising them with a legal action, anything that keeps them on their toes so that they don't know how to respond or what you're going to do next. So use the element of surprise and the unexpected and try to meet your opponent in areas where they don't really know how to respond to what you're doing. Each of your situations, that can be very different. It will depend on your issue, where you are, and who your opponents are, and what kind of power and tactics they are likely to use. We discuss opponents and their tactics later in the course. There are rules. National and local agencies and corporations all have their rules and regulations about how activities are carried out. Make sure you take advantage of this. Make your opponents play by their own rules, such as the right to a public hearing or the right to protest. We mentioned being opportunistic earlier, and this is a similar point, which is where we should tie our advocacy efforts to related events. So watch out for events such as local news stories or national awareness days or anything that's happening in the wider world that might be relevant to your group's objectives. When you link your advocacy effort to these events, it helps to publicize and strengthen your position in the community. It adds to your credibility, it adds to your reputation, it adds to your visibility, and overall will add to your advocacy effort. And the final advice is to enjoy yourself. Celebrate your successes. Feeling of celebration, an aspect of fun, can help maintain commitment to your cause. So try to have a good time wherever possible in your advocacy work. Be creative, and also we talked about creative tactics, right? Creative tactics, doing something that's fun or funny or unusual, can also raise the group spirit. Fun events will also prevent your team burning out, builds closeness in your organization, and will keep everybody energized for the longer term. So try to make this advocacy effort fun if it's appropriate to your situation. So, considering the 20 suggested survival guidelines for advocates, which of those actions would you take, or are you already taking, to apply in your situation? Think about which of these are also, at least for you, the most important and why. Which ones matter most in your case? Are there any guidelines which are difficult, you think, to follow? Do some situations make it harder to play by these rules, for example? And do any of these guidelines seem wrong to you? That's quite okay. Your situation will be unique. But think about why they're wrong and what you might suggest as a guideline to help assure an effective advocacy effort for the cause that you are supporting. And do you have any other ideas that you might use in your situation? So take some time to reflect on those 20 guidelines and how they could or are being applied in your situation.